Eastern Europe is once again at the center of global attention. The tension between NATO and Russia shows no sign of easing, and since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, the stakes have only grown higher. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are watching nervously. Their geography makes them some of the most vulnerable members of NATO, directly exposed to Russian military pressure from both the east and the heavily militarized enclave of Kaliningrad. Amid this tense atmosphere, the United States has made a bold move. It has deployed one of its most elite airborne formations to the Baltics, the 173rd Airborne Brigade. This deployment is not just a routine exercise, it is a statement. It is a clear signal from Washington that NATO is willing to back its promises with real combat power, stationed right at Russia's doorstep. The 173rd Airborne Brigade is not just another infantry unit. Stationed in Vicenza, Italy, this brigade has become a rapid response force for U.S. Army, Europe, and NATO. Whenever a crisis erupts in Europe, the 173rd is among the very first to be called. The brigade's origins trace back to World War I, but it earned its legendary reputation in Vietnam. In 1965, the 173rd became the first major U.S. Army ground combat unit deployed to South Vietnam. Its paratroopers fought in some of the bloodiest battles of the war, including the fierce struggle at Dak II, where they faced relentless North Vietnamese assaults. After Vietnam, the brigade's reputation only grew. The 173rd deployed to Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom, and later to Afghanistan as part of the long global war on terror. In every theater, its paratroopers proved their skill, endurance, and ability to fight under the toughest conditions. Today, the brigade consists of roughly 4,000 soldiers. It includes airborne infantry battalions, a cavalry squadron for reconnaissance, artillery batteries, engineers, and support units. Known as the Sky Soldiers, they specialize in rapid airborne assault. They can be dropped behind enemy lines, seize critical terrain, and hold it until larger NATO forces arrive. The deployment of the 173rd Airborne Brigade to Lithuania marked a new chapter in NATO's presence in Eastern Europe. Elite paratroopers arrived ready, prepared to respond swiftly to any crisis. Their presence alone sent a clear message. NATO forces could be deployed rapidly anywhere along the Baltic front. For Lithuania, a nation standing at the edge of a volatile region, this arrival brought reassurance. It was a reminder that they were not alone, that powerful allies were ready to stand beside them. For Moscow, the news was a stark signal. It demonstrated that NATO could position combat-ready troops near Russia's borders quickly and decisively, reinforcing the strategic strength of the alliance and altering calculations across the region. From the Russian perspective, the deployment of the 173rd Airborne Brigade to Lithuania is provocative. Moscow has long accused NATO of creeping expansion and encirclement. State-controlled media quickly framed the U.S. operation as an act of aggression, another step in NATO's militarization of Eastern Europe. Kaliningrad, Russia's heavily armed enclave wedged between Poland and Lithuania, is central to this tension. It hosts advanced S-400 air defense systems, Iskander ballistic missiles, and a strong garrison of Russian troops. With U.S. paratroopers now training just across the border, Russia feels compelled to respond politically and potentially militarily. But NATO rejects this narrative. From its point of view, the deployment is purely defensive. The Baltic states have every reason to fear Russia, especially after the invasion of Ukraine. The message is clear. NATO will not allow its eastern members to face threats alone. Why does the deployment of the 173rd matter so much? The answer lies in NATO's defense strategy. The Baltic states are small, flat, and difficult to defend. If Russia ever launched an attack, it could overrun them quickly, unless NATO already had troops in place. That is where the 173rd comes in. As an airborne brigade, it can be deployed faster than armored or mechanized units. It can arrive first, secure positions, and act as a tripwire force. If NATO troops are attacked, Article 5 of the NATO treaty is automatically triggered, meaning an attack on one member is an attack on all. By placing American paratroopers in Lithuania, NATO ensures that any aggression would immediately involve US forces. That raises the stakes for Moscow dramatically. It is no longer just about threatening small Baltic states. Any move against them would mean direct confrontation with the United States. The presence of the 173rd Airborne Brigade in Lithuania carries major geopolitical weight. First, it places new pressure on Russia. The Kremlin must now assume that NATO has the capability to rapidly reinforce the Baltics with elite troops. That complicates any potential military planning by Moscow. Second, it reassures European allies. Some nations have doubted Washington's long-term commitment to Europe, especially with US. Attention increasingly shifting toward Asia. The deployment of American airborne troops to Lithuania is a strong signal that Europe remains a priority. Third, it increases the risks of escalation. Whenever heavily armed forces from opposing sides operate close to one another, the chances of miscalculation rise. A single incident, even accidental, could spiral into a larger crisis. With the deployment of the 173rd Airborne Brigade to Lithuania, the balance of power in Eastern Europe has shifted once again. For Washington and NATO, it is proof that their commitments are not empty words. For Lithuania and its Baltic neighbors, it is reassurance that they will not stand alone. For Moscow, however, it is an unwelcome reality. Elite American paratroopers are now stationed right on Russia's doorstep, closer than ever before. The key question remains, will this show of strength deter aggression, or will it push tensions to a dangerous new level? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the sky soldiers of the 173rd have made their presence known, and Eastern Europe has once again become the most dangerous flashpoint in global geopolitics.